Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Brennan. I'm the Director of Religious Education at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton in Keller, Texas, and I just wanted to share something with you about today's Gospel reading, which is from Luke 24, and it's the story of the two disciples on the road to Emmaus after the resurrection. What I've always found neat about this particular passage is it has a lot of unfolding drama as Jesus reveals who he is to these two disciples who do not recognize him when they first meet him. I urge you to read it. It's chapter 24, verses 13 through 35. But what's really interesting about this to me is this is how the church teaches about sacraments. And you might be wondering, what's the connection? I don't see it. If you think about it, the disciples don't recognize Jesus as they first encounter him on the road. But he unlocks for them the stories of the Old Testament, starting with Moses and the other prophets, about how the Messiah must suffer, must die in order to accomplish the redemption of Israel and the world. Essentially, what he's doing is he's showing prefigurement. He's showing the foreshadowing of what would happen to Jesus to the disciples, because they had worried maybe all of this had been in vain, Jesus' life and death, and maybe it was all meaningless. They were downcast, in fact. That's how it's translated in the New American Bible, as they explained to Jesus what they had seen Jesus go through in Jerusalem, not knowing they were talking to Jesus, of course. In other words, if you look in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, when it goes through the sacraments, it always shows the prefigurements of the sacraments in the Old Testament first, before it talks about the fulfillment of that sacrament through the life of Christ, the redemptive work of Christ in the New Testament. So, not surprisingly then, if you have that in mind, it doesn't shock us at all that when is it that the disciples truly realize who Jesus is? They realize who he is when he blesses and breaks the bread at the end of the story. In other words, he gives them the Eucharist. They recognize who this person really is in the sacrament of Holy Communion. They see Christ for who he is as he gives of himself the Eucharist to them. That's definitely a message for us today. And thank you, take care, and God bless.